In the pre-dawn hours of May 7th, 2023, the tranquility of a South Carolina town was shattered by a chilling discovery. A lifeless body lying on a desolate road. The victim, 33-year-old Davis McClendon, a beloved local figure known for his warm heart and unwavering dedication to his community. Initially dismissed as a tragic hit-and-run accident, the case took a sinister turn as investigators delved deeper, uncovering a web of jealousy, betrayal, and cold-blooded murder. The morning air was thick with the damp chill of dawn when the call came in. Something was lying in the middle of the road. At first, the driver who spotted it thought it was just debris, maybe an animal hit overnight. But as the headlights cut through the darkness, the reality became clear. Within minutes, emergency responders arrived, their flashing lights cutting through the eerie stillness of the South Carolina back road. The man lying motionless was identified as 33-year-old Davis McClendon. His clothes were torn, his body battered, and his shoes were found several feet away, common indicators of a hit and run. But something didn't add up. As officers scanned the scene, a strange unease settled over them. There were no skid marks, no shattered glass, no signs of an impact that suggested a high-speed collision. Just Davis, lifeless in the road. The coroner's preliminary assessment suggested blunt force trauma, consistent with being hit by a vehicle. But was that really what happened? News of Davis's death spread fast. In a town where everyone knew each other, disbelief turned to grief, and grief quickly turned to speculation. Who would hit him and just drive away? Was it an accident? Or had something far more sinister taken place under the cover of darkness? What investigators didn't know yet was that this case would unravel into something much darker than a simple hit and run. The secrets buried beneath the surface were about to come to light. And the truth? It would shock everyone. At first, it seemed like an open and shut case, a tragic hit and run on a quiet South Carolina road. But as investigators combed through the scene, doubt began to creep in. Something wasn't right. The road where Davis McClendon was found was narrow, barely traveled at that hour. If a car had struck him, where were the tire marks? The debris? The impact wounds didn't quite match a high-speed collision. His injuries were severe, but strangely concentrated. And then there was the biggest red flag, the way his body was positioned. It wasn't sprawled out like someone thrown from impact. It looked placed. Whispers of suspicion grew louder when the medical examiner took a closer look. Davis's injuries weren't entirely consistent with a car accident. Some wounds suggested something far more personal, more deliberate. Had someone tried to stage the scene? As investigators dug deeper, they turned to the one thing that never lies: evidence. Surveillance cameras in the area were scarce, but a few businesses on the outskirts of town had security systems. What they found changed everything. Grainy, time-stamped footage from a distant gas station captured something chilling. Davis wasn't walking alone that night. A vehicle had been trailing him, not speeding, not swerving, just following. And then, just minutes later, it reappeared, without him. The case was no longer about a reckless driver fleeing the scene. This was something much darker. Someone knew exactly what happened to Davis McClendon, and they had gone to great lengths to cover it up. But they made a mistake, and investigators were about to find it. As investigators peeled back the layers of Davis McClendon's life, they uncovered a tangled web of passion, jealousy, and revenge, one that pointed straight to a man with everything to lose. At the center of it all was Meredith Ackerman. Smart, beautiful, and charming, she had been separated from her husband, Bud Ackerman, for months. Their marriage had unraveled, and by the time Davis entered the picture, the relationship was nothing more than a shell of its former self. But what seemed like a fresh start for Meredith turned into an open wound for Bud. Davis and Meredith's connection was no secret. Friends noticed the way she lit up around him. Witnesses saw them together more and more. And Bud, he saw it too. He wasn't just losing his wife, he was losing control. Those close to Bud described a man on the edge. He was angry, humiliated, and despite the separation, he wasn't ready to let go. Text messages recovered from Meredith's phone revealed the chilling transformation of a man consumed by jealousy. The conversation started as pleading, then turned to threats. He accused her of throwing their life away. He blamed Davis. And then, just weeks before Davis's murder, Bud Ackerman was spotted parked outside Meredith's home in the middle of the night, watching, waiting. Investigators now had a motive, a man pushed to the brink by jealousy, rage, and the realization that his wife had moved on. But knowing Bud Ackerman had a reason wasn't enough. They needed proof that he had acted on it. What they uncovered next would leave no doubt. The trial was over. The sentence had been handed down. But for the people of this small South Carolina town, the nightmare was far from forgotten. What had once been a place where doors were left unlocked and neighbors trusted each other had now been shaken to its core. If something this dark, this calculated, could happen here, who's to say it couldn't happen again? Fear lingered in the air long after Bud Ackerman was led away in handcuffs. Conversations at the local diner weren't about weekend plans anymore. They were about the crime that had stolen one of their own. Parents held their children a little closer. Friends checked in on each other more often. The town had lost not just a life, but a sense of security that could never truly be restored. But in the midst of the pain, something unexpected happened. Davis McClendon's memory refused to be defined by tragedy. His loved ones made sure of that. A memorial was built in the town square, a place where people could sit, reflect, and remember the man who had brought so much light to their lives. His former high school started a scholarship in his name, dedicated to students who embodied his kindness and community spirit. On the anniversary of his death, candlelight vigils were held, not just in mourning, but in celebration of the life he lived. Justice had been served, but for those who knew Davis, true justice would be making sure his story wasn't just about how he died, but about how he lived. And so, as the years passed, the town slowly found its way back to normal. But no one forgot, because some wounds don't heal, some losses leave a mark, and some names, like Davis McClendon's, are never meant to fade. Love, jealousy, rage. The emotions that drive people to the edge are often the ones closest to the heart. Bud Ackerman wasn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. He wasn't a criminal with a long history of violence. He was an ordinary man until he wasn't. This case wasn't just about a murder. It was about how obsession can turn deadly, how unchecked emotions can consume a person until they see no way out but through bloodshed. Bud Ackerman wasn't just losing his marriage, he was losing control. And in his mind, Davis McClendon wasn't just another man. He was the reason for it all. How often do we hear about crimes like this? A lover who refuses to let go. A relationship that spirals into something dangerous. A tragedy that could have been prevented. This case serves as a haunting reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones we fear in dark alleys. They're the ones who claim to love us. But perhaps the most chilling part of it all? It could happen again, anywhere, to anyone. Because when jealousy turns to rage and love turns to obsession, it's only a matter of time before someone crosses the line.